I will say, and I think it's really cool how when you go to their website, you go to the roster, obviously, you can click on each championship and it takes you to the lineage of that champ of the title. So let me get that back up here. So wrestling, had you said, for a quick run just to add to the legacy of the title, and you're referring to Cope. So if we take a look at it, man, and it's funny you bring that up because I was thinking about this also not too long ago, like just the lineage of the champion or of their title. So we got Chris Jericho, right? Obviously, and again with Jericho, I think that it was a good choice starting him off as the inaugural AEW champion. I think with the roster that they had at the time and the playing field that they had at the time, Jericho had, especially coming off of the match he had with Omega, right? He had been really building a name for himself outside of WWE and just really adding to his legacy. And that was when we really saw the dynamic, the dynamic really. Dynamic is that's a fine word, but just the range, I guess, is a better way to frame it. That Jericho has for his creativity and for his different characters and things like that, and how he's able to obviously reinvent himself. So the Paymaker, I think that was definitely needed for AEW and their inaugural champion, and obviously it gives you the credibility. Has coming off with kind of coming off with WWE, but having that WWE legacy there and that name power, right? That was, in my opinion, the best decision, and it really led and kind of gave the foundation to having Hangman visit the heavyweight championship scene later on. And then obviously you follow that up, and again, to shout out to them for having the dates and the time frames on it too. And again, 182, so not bad, not a bad length, right? And then you have Moxley, man. Moxley came in, and I remember when, sorry, my eyes are just, I have something in them. When Moxley came in, and the feeling at that Double or Nothing, and the feeling that, like, oh shit, like, let's fucking go, like, this guy, like, it was he's a badass coming in, right? And it was just that takeover feeling and that not invasion type of vibe, but like AEW is no joke, man. Like, they're coming out swinging, and it was just dope. And I really like how Moxley came in and immediately went after Omega, right? And went after Omega and Jericho and really established that main event scene. So it just made sense for Moxley, in my opinion, to be the one to dethrone Jericho. And then you get to the next, Omega. So obviously, like I said, having Moxley come in and inserting himself in the main event scene, it kind of molded and created a nice bridge between Jericho, Moxley to Omega, and establishes that credibility to your title as well and to your heavyweight scene. You have these heavy hitters all going after the championship, and Moxley coming in obviously from the competition, from this other world, right? And wanting to be the guy. And it's kind of interesting to see that he didn't even go a full year the first time, because it kind of felt longer. It felt like it was longer at that point in a good way, but it's just wild that it wasn't. So anyway, it's not really that important. It was just it just kind of stood out there. But again, having Moxley come in and go after Omega and Jericho set up the nice transition and the logical transition, really, to having Omega be the one to dethrone Moxley. And seeing that Omega just shy, man, I wonder if they realized how close they were to the year. But seeing how Omega and thinking back to Omega's run, rather, that was when I was kind of disappointed, to be honest with you, because he then, of course, he was the heavyweight champion in AEW, but that's when he went on his kind of like title collector, like, I don't want to say gimmick, but his like title collector version of himself, right? He was with Don Callis, going to TNA, all that good stuff. It was good for TNA as well, right? It definitely got them more views and more pay-per-view buys, I think, at the time, but to me, I didn't get as much of a character presentation for Omega. It just kind of seemed like a cliche, like, bad guy wanting to collect all the titles and just to say he can, right? And that's cool. But to me, I was really looking for it, and I've said this a few times at this point. I was not even kind of, I was one of those fans. I was looking forward to learning about Omega, like what made him the cleaner, like why was he this dope wrestler, like why is he the best bout machine, and his matches did show that, right? But I just wanted to see and learn him as a character. So that's why I felt like it was a little not underwhelming in as a whole, but it was just a little bit more. There was a lot to be desired, I'll say, character wise, but match wise, it was fine. But I don't know. I just think that they could have done more. However, it did lead to the beautiful story that we got from Hangman and the growth of the Hangman character. We saw him not become the inaugural champion and how much that really weighed on him as a whole, and how him being, in my opinion, in my words, kind of like the little brother of the elite, right? Like kind of like that guy where it's like, yeah, they took him seriously, but it was like, okay, like it's Hangman, and he's like a good hand type thing, right? But not that they were saying that he was going to be the heavyweight champion, but it just wasn't as obvious, right? And like your standouts were Omega, the Young Bucks were so flashy and things like that, and they just kind of dominated the scene in their own ways. And Hangman, again, he was good and he had his own following and shit like that, but it just he wasn't where he was at to win the championship, right? Like he just Jericho was the better man at that point, right? And the better man in that match, character wise and story wise, right? But to see the journey that Hangman went on, and then of course him teaming with Omega, and I know if they can really trust each other, and then the difference between the two, right? I'll never forget some of the scenes where they had Hangman drinking, of course, his beer or whatever, and Omega's drinking milk. Like it's just fantastic. But of course, like in the tag team matches that Omega, or the tag team match rather, that Omega and Page had against the Young Bucks, fantastic. So to see the culmination of the journey to the first, and again, like, it's kind of weird because Omega wasn't really a homegrown AEW talent, and neither technically as Hangman Page, right? Because they both got started elsewhere, especially in Japan. They really, especially Hangman too, like the Hangman gimmick, right? Really developed there. But to me, and again, you can't. I don't even like saying it. It's just I don't even know if I want, like, saying it just sounds and feels weird. But yes, you can make a case for if Omega was a part of the fold that AEW may not be around because there's so many different pieces, right? And that's a whole nother story. But Hangman felt like one of those talents where he was homegrown, but you also like watched him on his journey from, I don't even want to say the bottom up, but the bottom in the sense of like his singles journey. You knew he was a great tag wrestler, as he proved that with Omega, but to really be the guy in a big mainstream company, you were kind of wondering and kind of questioning it. And when he finally pulled the trigger and won, you know, no pun intended with, Kenny's V trigger of all that, but to have him win and it to be against Omega was just a really cool transition. And then we creep up to my guy. Just look at him. Look at this. Look at this face, guys. Really quick. I gotta pull up the comment section here too. Hold on one second. Look at this guy. Look at CM Punk, guys. Look at how he looks when he was the champion in AEW compared to how he looks now in WWE. Night and day. This dude in this picture looks like he's fucking mid-50s, right? Early to mid-50s. And it's just wild. It's just wild. Um 87 days. And of course we all know the shit show that was CM Punk dethroning Hangman and the promo that led into it. Yeah, which also, and then Punk getting injured, and it also led to the interim champion, which I hope they don't ever revisit the whole interim championship bullshit, because it really just fucked over Moxley and Tony Storm for that matter. Just really, didn't really fuck over Tony's. Fuck over is kind of dramatic, but it just really just created more problems than good, in my opinion. Moxley is the interim champion, and then it's just, look at that. That just looks dumb. And let's just read the little insert here. It says Jon Moxley defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi in a tournament finale to become interim AEW World Champion at Forbidden Door in Chicago at the United Center. CM Punk was originally scheduled to defend the title against Tanahashi at Forbidden Door, but was pulled from the match due to injury. Jon Moxley then, again on the same night, Jon Moxley scored the quickest world championship victory in AEW history on Dynamite. That's not the same. That shouldn't be the same date. I got it. Okay, that can't be. That makes no sense. Moxley. I'm gonna just reread that. Moxley scored the quickest world championship victory in AEW history on Dynamite at the Wolstein Center in Cleveland, Ohio. Moxley pinned lineal champion CM Punk in just 3 minutes and 10 seconds in a match to determine the undisputed champion. That can't be the same date though. Why are they? Why is this same? Those dates are confusing to me. And then it says CM Punk became a 2-time AEW World Champion in his hometown of Chicago. Punk avenged his loss to Jon Moxley 11 days earlier with a pinfall victory at All Out. Remember that clusterfuck? And look at this. Look at scrolling through this. You go Punk, Mox, Punks, Mox. Like, just fucking ridiculous, bro. And then of course that led to MJF and then Samoa Joe. Man, props to Joe. Joe doesn't get as much love as he deserves. And then of course that went over to Swerve. Then we had Bryan Danielson and back to Mox. And look at Mox, the difference in appearance between Mox there and then how he looks now. No hair, just wild. So I kind of wanted to take a look at that and probably spent way too much time on it than I should. But I want to take a look at their lineage and see if it felt as, because to me, when you think of AEW and when you think of someone like a Jeff Jarrett or a Adam Copeland or a Christian challenging for the title, the whole point of going into a match is the possibility that they're going to win, right? And if not, then what's even the point? So my fear is just the perception, you know what I mean? And because again, this is like, it's just, I've been thinking about it. So I kind of used your comment as a way to kind of segue into this. But AEW as a whole, like, you just really need, and they started off, like, I mean, of course, like, I'll never kind of goes against my argument, but starting off with Jericho, I think is still a solid choice. But I think you still want to, and it plays into the whole alternative theme and vibe that they wanted to, and perception that they wanted to put out there. You just really like, you need to have that badass vibe, and Moxley, you know, say what you want about the story, and trust me, I have. He still at least gives off that badass, like, don't fuck with me type of dude and type of vibe. And if I'm gonna have a company and I have the option to have Moxley, I'm gonna want him as my champion, or depending on the lay of the land as well, right? But going through here, man, like, to have someone dethrone Moxley too, like, I would really hope that even if it's like a quick hot shot type thing, just to, like, you know, like, spark, you know, like, to have a swerve, or like, not actually swerve, but just, you know, make a swerve and to, like, have a spark in the business or whatever, in their business. I think you could, but I think that it's, I think that, I think they have an idea for Christian, and I'm really, I don't want to say concerned, but I think Christian making his appearances and kind of sitting and watching and stuff like that, I really think that they're looking to do something specific with Christian. And I don't know if it's going to have Christian becoming the actual champion or not. So I think if it's not going to be Copeland, I think it may actually end up being Christian, which doesn't make it any better or worse. But why continue to have him hold on to this if we're not going to pull the trigger on that just to make him lose? I don't know. So